Hello, class. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, madam.
How are you all doing?
We are good.
We're fine,
Great.
thank you. Yeah, blessed.
I'm happy to hear that. Yesterday, you guys did that to me. I was at City Campus. I was like, I'm going to meet this fresh batch of students. And then there was nobody in the classroom. It was only later I found out that you had been asked to move online. And I tried to reach you, and Puka told me that you had a class. Right? So that's what Puka tells me. The time is good for all of you.
Yes, madam.
All right, that's
Yes,
great.
please.
So welcome to Play Analysis and Interpretation. Today is the introductory class, and so we'll be going through the course outline and course requirements, and then I'll take you through what I have set up for the course in Sakai. Because the course is online, I have everything set up on Sakai, including all the plays we'll be analyzing. So you have access to the plays. And so I would just want us to navigate through the Sakai system for you to see how I have arranged everything and where to access what. Okay. Can you see the Sakai here? Can you see the
The
welcome
screen,
page?
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes,
So
that's
when you open your Sakai and you click on Tier 331, this is what you will see. What is at the very top is overview. That is where I welcome you to the course. Okay. And then after overview, there is syllabus. That is where I give you the general background to the course requirements, and then the weekly schedule and assessment criteria. And then here is where I put the link for our class, but I think I'll have to change the link very soon because I like using Zoom rather than Teams, but I'm having a few challenges with the Zoom. And so we can just keep using this one until we sort the issue with the Zoom out. All right, so I'll just begin with what I have here on the welcome page. Welcome to Play Analysis and Interpretation. Plays are fascinating because they tell stories through characters, dialogue, and stage direction. Plays present interesting characters with their own intrigues and issues within a well-crafted society created by a playwright. Even though plays are written to be performed on stage, they exist as complete experiences in textual form without the benefit of productions. Engaging with plays gives us the opportunity to learn more about the world around us as they pose thought-provoking issues for consideration and contemplation. Plays also simulate experiences for us to ponder for moral, emotional, psychological, and intellectual enrichment. Join me in this exciting exploration of worlds beyond your imagination. All you need is a playful heart and an inquiring and open mind. Let's play. What I've written here is actually all that you need. You need to have an open mind and the willingness to learn more about something you are not familiar with. Okay. And please give us that opportunity to experience other people's experiences, to experience certain things that happened across time and space, where we wouldn't have the benefit of living out those experiences ourselves. And so it's important that you take your study of play seriously, especially in this course. But you have to open up your mind and be willing to learn from plays. All right, so now after the overview, you can go through the syllabus. And this is it. I'm going to read through it just for you to have. If you have a question, you can always um, ask, okay, by raising your hand. All right, course description. Not all productions are based on a script. However, it is important to undertake script analysis and interpretation as theater students and practitioners because the starting point for the majority of theater productions is the study of the script. The main question then is, how does one go about analyzing and interpreting a play text? This course builds on the level 200 introductory course, Play Analysis and Interpretation 1, supposed to be 1, to further students' understanding of plays as they learn approaches to play analysis and the processes involved in analyzing plays for various purposes. We will journey through the historical foundations of critical analysis and interpretation and the various analytical approaches available for that purpose. It is the aim of this course to help students understand how plays come together and how they can be deconstructed or reverse engineered to learn more about the workings of the various elements that come together to communicate a play's central idea. Students will gain a comprehensive and healthy balance in their analysis of play texts, combining their emotional responses with critical and conceptual frameworks for the purposes of interpretation. In light of changes in dramaturgy over the centuries, the course opens up the mode of analysis and interpretation of plays beyond Aristotle. Beginning with Aristotle and his Poetics, we will explore the foundations of play analysis and develop the necessary tools for analytical inquiry. Alternative approaches to literary analysis and interpretation, which go beyond intellectual analysis to incorporate visceral awareness, will also be introduced to help especially actors, directors, and designers to engage all their senses when analyzing plays for performance. The course is designed to widen the student's scope of play analysis and interpretation by approaching it from both objective and subjective viewpoints towards rich interpretation of selected texts. This is aimed at helping students develop their own voice in the interpretation of play scripts, using the tools of literary analysis in a way that produces new insights. Students will have the opportunity to test their acquired analytical skills, beginning with one-act plays and then proceeding to full-length plays during the semester. This semester, students will focus on learning and applying analytical and interpretational tools to the study of selected plays from Europe, that is comprising 19th and 20th centuries, and the United States, which focuses on a 21st century play. Audience description. This is a level 300 course for BA and BFA theater arts students. It builds on introductory concepts in play analysis and interpretation 1 from the second semester of level 200. Mode of delivery. The mode of delivery for this course will be mainly online via Zoom, with the introductory and revision classes being physical, which is what I tried to do yesterday, and it didn't work out. And I can't travel to city 2 times in a row because I have another class right before this one. Course objective and goals. to build critical thinking skills, to build sound analytical skills, to promote and nurture critical views on artistic writing and acquire interpretation tools for such purpose, to contribute towards the development of professional art criticism in Ghana. Learning outcomes. By the end of this course, students will, one, have gained adequate knowledge of the foundations of formalist play analysis, would have developed a firm understanding of the various approaches to play analysis and their application to specific texts, would have learned to analyze plays as actors, directors, designers, and critics, would have gained the confidence to pick up any play script to analyze, would have developed critical thinking and writing skills. Plagiarism. Plagiarism is the act of using materials by others and from other sources, that is copying, cutting and pasting from the internet, in your own work without adequate acknowledgement, intentionally or unintentionally. Plagiarism in any form is unacceptable in the University of Ghana and shall be treated as a serious offense. Appropriate sanctions, as stipulated in the plagiarism policy, will be applied when students are found to have violated the policy. This is a very serious offense and must be avoided at all costs. Assessment and grading. Individual works done by students across the entire semester as part of continuous assessment constitutes 20%. And then group work within the same mode also constitutes 20%. And then forum discussion, where you put elevator summaries of the plays you are reading, constitutes 10%. And then attendance and participation constitutes 10%. Then you write a final essay, which constitutes 40%. The final essay is your final exam. For the grading scale, you should refer to your undergraduate handbook, knowing what grade gives you, what mark gives you an A, what mark gives you B plus, and all that. Individual work. At this stage in your learning, it is important that you develop the skills for analyzing plays, and this can only happen if you practice analyzing plays. Each student is required to analyze the weekly plays based on the notes made at the reading stage. This personal analysis is guided by specific questions the student must respond to for each play. Analysis for each play should not exceed 2 pages. At the end of the semester, the student should have 2-page analysis of all 5 play texts for the semester. From the short analysis, each student will then select one to expand upon for the end of semester essay. The practice analysis is graded over 20%, like I highlighted under the assessment. So these are the questions that you will answer for the personal analysis you'll be doing. Who wrote the play? What era does the playwright belong to? Who or what is the play about? What happens to him or her or them? How does that change him or her or them at the end of the play? How does the title of the play add to our understanding of what the play is all about? How does the playwright present the events in the play, linear or episodic, or any other plot structure? So what is the playwright saying with the play? And then do you agree with him or her? Why or why not? These are just questions to guide your response to the play at the personal level. Are you all here? Does it make sense?
Yes, please.
All right.
Yes.
So the following information is on the group work. The purpose of these groups is to provide an opportunity for students to discuss, analyze, and interpret each play among themselves and learn to challenge and accept each other's views in a respectful way. Each group is required to capture its analysis in 2 pages and submit on a weekly basis, focusing on the given circumstances. Each student within a group is required to contribute to the group's submission. Group leaders should ensure that the final submission reflects the views of all members in the group. If a student does not contribute to the discussions and writing, his or her name should not be added to the assignment in question when submitting for the week. Group work makes up 20% of total grading. So for the group work, these are the questions that should guide your analysis. Who wrote the play? What era does the playwright belong to? Who or what is the play about? And then you look at time, the time of composition, the time of action, the dramatic time, place, the general and the specific, society, the relationships, ranks, occupations, social standards, the economy. What kind of economic system do the characters operate? I'll teach you about all of these next week. Politics and law. What is the relationship um, of the characters to learning and to the arts in general, and then spirituality. What is their spiritual belief, or what spiritual system of belief do they practice, and all that. And then the group concludes with a summary of the world of the characters, because all of these come together to present the world of the play. Teaching and learning methods. As I said already, this course will proceed through face-to-face and online teaching, and the face-to-face was supposed to be for the first and the very last class. Required to work in groups to foster collaboration and learning. Discussions through weekly forum topics. And you can also create forum topics based on what interests you. As you are reading, maybe there's something interesting, you can pose a question that everybody can contribute to. It all helps in your own understanding. So please don't stay away from Sakai. This is our main tool for communicating with each other and learning. So you can create your own community within this course site so that you can enrich your learning. Students are encouraged to start discussion threads on Sakai based on current readings to promote peer-to-peer learning. All lectures will be recorded and uploaded on Sakai to aid revision. Learner support. To ensure success in this course, students are encouraged to ask questions, send emails concerning any difficulty they are having in accessing course material or understanding any aspect of the course. Students' concerns and problems will be treated with utmost priority, so bear that in mind. All plays are accessible on the Sakai course site. Notes and other reading materials are uploaded on Sakai and linked to their respective weekly lessons. And mind you, I don't give notes. What I do is to capture everything in the recording so that if you want to revise using the recording, including the slides I'll be sharing, then all your revision material is in the recording. So bear that in mind. Supporting technology, this course will proceed mainly online using Zoom. Well, now we are using Teams. And then the face-to-face sessions was supposed to be in week 1 and week 10. The online lectures will also be recorded, as I have said, and uploaded on Sakai. So I'll take you through where all these will be available. These are some reference texts at your library that you can read on about analysis and interpretation, or any secondary material on the play you are reading, you can find in some of these texts. So, and sometimes through the UG online e-resources system. So you should try and read further so that you can enhance your understanding of what we are learning about analysis and interpretation. And these are the plays we will be doing this semester. A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen, Mother Courage and Her Children by Bertolt Brecht, The Genius by Horace Holly, Ruined by Lynn Nottage, The Open Door by Alfred Sutro. Important information. Students will be put into groups at the beginning of the course. Now, this is something I will use your registration in the ITS to do. So I'll just group you and share the groupings on your Sakai. You will see it in your announcement section so that you can see which group you belong to. Please, all of you must endeavor to check things for yourselves on Sakai. Don't rely on your friends. Don't rely on your friends going to take material and then you siphon material off them. No, you are supposed to be in charge of your own learning. That is your responsibility. So you check deadlines, you check for material, you do everything you need to do by yourself. This is how you take charge of your learning. Don't keep relying on your friends to send you links here and there when the links have been posted on Sakai. So please, express seriousness right from the beginning and you'll be just fine. But there are no excuses with, oh, I didn't know when the deadline was. Oh, I didn't know the material was here. I would not tolerate such excuses. So please bear that in mind. So you will be put into these groups and you are required to discuss, analyze, and submit a 2-page analysis of required play text. This will form the foundation of complex analysis at the end of the semester. Each student is also required to submit a personal reflection on each play based on question prompts provided on Sakai, which is what I have taken you through already. Online class attendance is very crucial, not only to the student's total understanding of the course and contribution towards final grade, it also forms the basis of eligibility to write exams for the course at the end of the semester. Each student earns a total of 10 marks for full attendance and participation in class discussions. Every student is required to read all prescribed materials and watch recorded lectures before each class to facilitate meaningful contribution to class discussions. I expect any students who will not be attending class to notify me by email at least 12 hours before the next class, explaining why. Students are entitled to only one excused absence. More than that, absence will affect the student's continuous assessment. So, I mean, this is there for you. You can always go back to Sakai and go through these if you have forgotten any aspect of it. So after the syllabus, we move on to the lessons. Lessons. So this is week 1. We are doing week 1, right? Play analysis and interpretation, theories of interpretation, types of analysis and interpretation, what play analysis and interpretation means to the theater practitioners, like the director, the designer, the actor, the critic, how to read plays. So this is the very first play we will be reading. We'll be discussing this play in 2 weeks. It's just a 1-act play. You can see that it's just 6 pages. And then, but because it's just 1 act, I don't see why you should just read this and not continue reading the other plays. You should read it, make your notes, begin to answer the questions because I'll set up the deadlines for individual assignments and group work on Sakai. So for you not to be, in a rush to do your work, it's important that you start early. It's just a 1-act. Read this 1-act, finish and read the next 1-act. So next week we'll do, our topic is the play text and composition. So we'll be looking at Aristotle's Poetics, the 6 elements of drama. Are you familiar with the 6 elements of drama?
No.
Okay. So we'll be looking at that next week.
Okay.
You know, you know what they are. Do you know what they are? Obed is trying to put me in a bottle. Who has caught Obed on this
Oh no,
platform?
madam.
Pokia, were you the one who caught Obed? Obed said he didn't know anything about the 6 elements of
It
drama.
was a mistake.
It was a mistake. Okay, I hear you.
It's a mistake.
I mean, regardless, we will revise all of these in order to move forward. All right. So we'll look at the 6 elements, and then we'll look at the given circumstances of a play, going through all the 7 elements I highlighted earlier: the time, the 3 aspects of time, the place, the society, and all that. And then we'll look at a few techniques by which playwrights reveal background story in a play. That is what has happened before the plot actually begins. And then we'll look at the premise of a play, that is the goal. To some extent, it's like the theme, but then premise is more like the very first thing that the playwright conceives of, which we get at the other end as theme. Okay, so we'll look at that. And so I intentionally put to do. So every time you see to do, it means that's what you are supposed to do before the next class. So you should read The Genius by Horace Hawley. Even though we are not discussing it next week, I want you to read it so that you can make your notes and be ahead. Okay. And then here too, I have said you should read The Genius because you are required to submit a 1-page reflection. No, it's actually 2 pages. Looks like I made a mistake here. There are 2 pages. There are 2 pages. You remember in the description, I highlighted that there are 2 pages of reflection. Were you following? Were
Yes.
you following? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So it was clearly a mistake. Let me see. Okay, so 2-page reflection on the play using question prompts provided on Sakai before next class. And so I will create the assignments and their respective deadlines at the assignment section of Sakai. And then you can see everything because I'll add the description and all the questions you are supposed to answer. So each assignment will contain all the details you need to know about what to do. And then when you are done, you'll be able to submit it by uploading it right there. And so week 2, we are looking at the play text and composition. And then week 3, analyzing plays, 1-act plays, The Genius. So that is what we'll be doing, The Genius. This is where we begin to analyze the plays. I think the same mistake is here again. Let me just quickly correct it. But moving forward, when you see 1 page, you shouldn't work with 1 page. I mean, I don't think it will even be enough for you to be able to answer the questions in just 1 page. Okay. So the analysis of the play text actually begins in week 3. So in 2 weeks is when we will be discussing The Genius by Horace Hawley. And so we'll start by looking at the synopsis of the play, the given circumstances, the background story, its plot, premise, characters, dialogue, conflicts, and then the theme, which is our interpretation of this play. What does it mean? Okay. And then we'll have a full discussion of what the play is all about. And then for the following week, you're supposed to read The Open Door by Alfred Sutro before the next class. And so I am advising that you read both 1-act plays. And when you are done and you have made your notes and you have started answering the questions for your individual assignments and also started working together in groups for the given circumstances, you move on to reading the other full-length plays, because the full-length plays are like a combination, like just combining three different one-act plays. So they are lengthier. That's why they are full-length plays. So you should clear these ones off your table so that you can have enough time to be reading the full-length plays in bits and making notes as you go till you finish. If you say you are going to wait till the week before the class to start reading the full-length plays, you will not be able to finish before you are required to submit assignments on them and to respond and contribute to discussions in class. So bear that in mind. And so week 4, we'll analyze The Open Door by Alfred Sutro by looking at these same elements as we did for The Genius. And then after this, you go and read Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House and prepare before class. And so we'll start analyze for the full length plays. We are not using just 1 week to analyze them. We are giving each one of the full length plays 2 weeks for analysis because they are full length plays. And so when we start at week 5, we will analyze Ibsen's A Doll's House by looking at the synopsis, the given circumstances, the background story, the plot, and the premise. And it is during this week you are supposed to submit a 1-page. You see, the 1 page is still here. It's 2 pages. Well, I'll have to work on this after. It looks like it is, just distracting us from. I'll just make a little note here to correct it. All right. So for week 5, we'll start analyzing Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. And it is during this week you'll be submitting your 2-page personal reflection using the questions. And then week 6, we will continue the analysis by looking at the characters, the dialogue, the conflicts, and then the theme and interpretation. And this is when groups should submit their group work on the same play by also reflecting on their questions. And then after this, we'll continue the reading and analysis of another play, which is Mother Courage and Her Children by Bertolt Brecht. And so during week 7, we will analyze half of it, looking at synopsis, given circumstances, background story, plot, premise, and then you're supposed to submit 2 pages, individual assignments. And then the following week, we continue the analysis by looking at characters, dialogue, conflict, theme, interpretation. And then groups are to submit their group work on the same play. It follows the same pattern as the first one. And then you will start reading Ruined by Lynn Nottage. And then we'll continue with the same pattern of analyzing half of it, looking at synopsis, giving circumstances, background story, premise, and then individual 2-page reflection here. And then week 10, groups will submit their group work. And then week 11, we'll have revision, where we interact and review everything we've learned. And if we have come across various literary devices within the plays, we'll discuss them and call it a semester. Do you have any questions on the lesson plan? Is everything clear?
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So you see assignments here. This is where I'll set up all your assignments. This is where you will be submitting your group work and individual work here at assignment. And so when I set it up and I set the dates, you will receive notifications. on deadlines and everything else that you need to know. All right. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint for today's class. Can you see the slides?
Yes, please.
Yes, madam.
Okay. So this is our introductory class. I really encourage you to be going to Sakai to check on all the materials there and begin to learn as quickly as possible because there's so much to do and you need to start on time so that you are always keeping up with the class. If you fall behind, you are not able to really follow what I'll be teaching moving forward. So please, let us help. Today is an introduction and we've already done the Sakai navigation. I've taken you through the course outline and course requirements. I haven't done the class groupings yet because I want to use the list of registered students from the ITS. And so, like I said before, you should start reading The Genius by Horace Hawley. And as you can see, there shouldn't be any excuses because I have made sure that all the plays are there for you to start to. Now, before we go into anything at all, let's think about what we are doing in this course. You have been doing theater from level 100. What do you think theater is? What is it? What is theater? Is theater a text? Or any of you can talk to me. Is theater a text? Hello. Oh, you mind me.
Hi.
Is theater a text? Is it a written text?
So, madam, we can say that
Yes.
in from level 100, we learned that in theater, there's theater as a place, which is the auditorium where um, um, performances are held. And in theater, in like the acting aspect or like in the production form, it's like the depiction of our everyday lives.
Exactly. Great. So we have the building and then we have the performance. Okay. But right from the beginning, we know when you look at you've all done theater history, and we know that theater has a ritualistic roots across all cultures where we perform rituals in either in honor of gods or to remember certain aspects of our history. So across human cultures, you find, these ritualistic roots and performative roots of theater. But theater, as we have come to know it right now in its conventional form, we know that it creates an artificial community where you have the actors on stage on the one hand representing characters, and then you have the audience on the other hand watching. And so that community that is created is described as a theater. A theater in the form of a performance that has been put together and shared with an audience. Okay, and it can exist in various forms. Most theatrical performances, as we know today, are based on play texts. They are based on play texts, but then the experiences are very different. We know that when you have a play text, what you read is different from what you watch of the play. If that same play is staged for performance, it becomes a performance text. It becomes a specific interpretation of that text. It is no longer that text. It becomes a specific interpretation of that text. And then the text on the one hand gives you a different experience of it. And so a play is a story that is written to be performed on stage. And it usually has characters, dialogue, stage directions. Mostly it is the dialogue and stage directions that gives you a clue that this is a play text. Because when you read a novel, it doesn't normally, intrude by using stage directions and telling you, okay, now it is this scene, and he moves here and she moves there before she meets this person and says this to the person, you know. And so there's something very performative about plays, okay? And so when you think of plays, even though they exist as text, they are actually written to be performed. And so they are more of action than just literature, even though they qualify also as literature. And it is especially because they qualify as literature, as literary pieces in their own right, that we are even here in the first place. Because what we are analyzing in this class is not a performance. We are analyzing play texts. Okay. So in your past experiences with analysis, can you just give me an indication of how it felt like, or what your experiences were when you analyzed plays in level 200? Just any of you, like two views, and then we can move on. What was the experience like analyzing plays? Oh, any of you, come on, be bold enough. Yes, I'm waiting.
Madam, please, the question again.
No, I'm just asking about your experiences of play analysis. What was your first experience analyzing a play, and how was it like? Does that make sense?
Yes, please, it does.
Okay. So, Pearl, talk to me. Pearl.
Yes, madam. Okay, so
I know you all have done play analysis in 200. So what was the experience
yes.
like?
I can say that we had a good start, but with the help of our lecturers. I mean, they went through all the plays with us, and so it was pretty detailed, and it made it quite enjoyable for me in particular, because I knew that day in day out, though I had read it, anytime I came to class, I mean, we were definitely going to unearth some part of the play that I didn't see whilst reading. So to me, it was
Oh,
quite
okay.
enjoyable.
All right. Any other view? Any other view? Okay, since you will not mind me, I'll just leave you alone. All right. So, like I said before, when you look at the historical foundations of plays, especially the conventional theater, in which tradition we are actually, operating, it goes back to ancient Greece, especially with play texts. But at the time, they enjoyed plays in performance. They didn't actually buy them to read them. They enjoyed them in performance as part of, a theatrical festival. But then, somewhere in the 16th century, people in Europe discovered these classical texts in Latin and Greek, and it sparked an interest in plays as literature because they wanted to learn the classics and learn their. It's possible for people to print many copies of play texts. And then people started having access to plays so that you can enjoy them as texts rather than waiting for there to be a performance before you watch a play or experience a play. Now, when you think about the whole difference between performance and the dramatic text, performance and the dramatic text, you can think of it as in the approaches in which people use to read plays. The whole point is if you are reading a play to criticize it or to write about it or present your point of view as a critic, it means that you are approaching it from a literary perspective. So you are looking at the play text in relation to a certain cultural and historical context in order to understand it or ascribe a meaning to it. But when you look at it from the theatrical lens, you want to be able to interpret it by using the mechanics of staging, that is through directing, acting, and design and everything, in order to put out a representation of that text on stage. Now, these two approaches actually give rise to, the ways in which people read texts. Are you reading it to put out a critical view on it so that you are not really interested in the text in its own right? You are looking at it as a means to discuss a certain broader social and historical issue. Whereas if I am reading and analyzing a play to stage it, I am very much interested in the elements and how they all work together to create meaning. Okay. And so when we are talking about analysis and the various branches depending on purpose, we might as well start with a very basic question. What is analysis? I know that was the first thing you did in level 200. Am I right? What is analysis? That's the easiest in the book, right? Or am I wrong here? Oh, talk to me. Don't make me feel like I'm just here in this meeting alone. Just respond.
No, madam.
Then no, what is it? What does it mean?
You were talking about analyze. Analyze.
To to analyze. Yes. And I was
Yes.
talking about analysis. So, Obed, what is analysis?
Madam is to break down something which is complex to its
Yeah,
simple
so
form.
you read it back to me. Read what I've written
Okay,
here back to me.
to analyze is to break down something complex into a simplified version in order to understand how the parts fit together.
Good. All right. And so, to break something down, because really, you can't analyze anything without breaking it down. Seriously, you can't do that. If it's a document, you need to break it down. What are the parts? How do they fit together? Whatever it is. When geologists are actually analyzing rocks, they have to like get to the bottom of, they have to get to the core of it to understand what it is made up of. Okay. And it is the same with analysis of place. And so when you think of um, play analysis, you have to think of it in relation to purpose. You can read a play just for the fun of it, in which case you wouldn't really, you know, think about it in terms of how to respond to it. Yes, you may get some intuitive responses. Sometimes you may have experienced something, and then you are reading a play, and the play can really affect you in a certain way. It means that you have a certain emotional response to it. Okay. But you wouldn't really examine those emotional responses to identify the elements that make them possible because you are not really analyzing them to present to an audience or to publish it. Whereas when you are writing your analysis for publication, you are careful to back your claims up with evidence. Further, when you are analyzing for production, you are careful to analyze in collaboration with all the other collaborators within the theater so that the interpretation of the text that you want to put up in the form of a production is not in conflict because maybe this person is presenting a different interpretation and you are maybe the design elements is saying something else and then the uh, directing is saying something else or the acting is saying something else. No, they all have to work together. And so depending on purpose, you read there are certain things you focus on in order to read the play to fulfill the needs of your purpose. So, based on whether you are reading it as a critic or you are reading it for theatrical production, there are two basic types of analysis that you would do. Either you are doing a contextual analysis or a formalist analysis. Now, the formalist analysis is basically a close reading of the text by looking at the various elements of the text. And this is where Aristotle comes in, okay? The elements of drama that we were talking about earlier. So that, okay, you are looking at the plot, you are looking at the characterization, you are looking at the dialogue, you are looking at the theme, you are looking at, you know, all the elements. What is their relationship to each other? How are they connected? How do they come together to create a whole? And what meaning do they convey? Okay. And it is their relationship to each other that formalist analysis is looking for because that is what creates that sense of unity. Okay. And formalist analysis is descriptive because it describes the internal artistic context and content of the play itself. And like I said before, it follows the line of Aristotle. And Aristotle in his time, girl,
Madam, the screen is blank. Oh, I can't see anything.
really? Who else?
Yes.
Please, who else is experiencing the same problem? Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
madam.
Then Pearl, I think the problem is coming from you. You should try and check your connection. Okay. Pearl, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'll go off and come back on.
And then come back. Okay. All right. So Aristotle was really interested in classification. He was a scientist, he was a philosopher, he did so many things. And he liked to classify things in the natural world. And so when he looked at the Greek plays that came a century before him, he wanted to classify them. So in terms of the classifications, I mean, he has the tragedy, he has comedy, he had lyrical poetry and all that. But within the classifications themselves, when we pick um, tragedy, for instance, that is where he gives us the six elements. And he gives us these six elements by sectioning them out. It doesn't mean that they exist separately from each other in the play. They all work together, but you can identify each of them and how they are related to each other and how they come together to convey a certain meaning of the play. Okay. Pearl, are you back? Okay. I don't think she's the one. All right, so all the elements working together to achieve the central aim of an artwork, such as a play. And so, in this way, we all know that you have to think about achieving one unified whole, even though you are looking at the elements separately. So, analysis, it separates out by breaking down and then now seeing how each element is related to the other. How is plot related to character? How is character related to dialogue? How is dialogue related to theme? All of these things. And then on the whole, what do they say? Because there's always a purpose for which a playwright would put pen to paper. There's something in your mind you want to convey. What is it? At the end of the reading, I should be able to see that thing, that idea you are trying to convey. All right. So when you think about it, there is a certain assumption that the play itself is worthy of study, period. Okay. Especially within the theater. You can pick a play text and just focus on how the elements of the play come together, and then assign an interpretation to it, and then put it up for a performance without necessarily looking at feminist theory or cultural theory or anything. And so instead of looking at the play as a means to discuss something else, like they do in literary theory or in cultural studies, in the theater, mostly the focus is on the play text itself. Okay. And so when you look at the two, you have contextual analysis and the formalist analysis. Whereas the first one looks at the play as a means to discuss something else, or looking at the meaning of the play in relation to a certain context, like the biography of the playwright, or a philosophical dilemma, or a certain key issue, or even a psychological issue. That is what the contextual kind of analysis does. It doesn't see the play itself as complete and worthy of analysis in its own right by looking at all the various elements and how they are related to each other and how they work together to communicate an idea. Okay, so the contextual analysis is the type that relates the play to the wider social context using theories. Okay. And so when you study a play like that, you are moving towards a critical interpretation of the play text. Like you would do, I don't know if you have started learning dramatic theory and criticism already. You are doing it this semester, right?
Yes, madam.
Yes. So I think dramatic theory and criticism leans heavily towards the critical dimensions of play analysis, where it's supposed to apply certain theories of interpretation to the play text rather than analysis and interpretation, where we use the formalistic approach, where we look at the elements of the play itself and how they all work together to create meaning within the play itself. Do you understand the two? Do the two make sense? Please, when I ask you a question, I expect you to respond. I am not alone here. Do you understand? It's a yes or no?
Yes, madam.
Please, you have to be more upbeat and active in my class. It is online, but you're not supposed to be passively just sitting there. That's not how it works. It's supposed to be an interaction between us. You don't just sit there like you are not here. So please, moving forward, as we are going on, you have to be attentive. Listen, when I ask you a question, you respond. If it's a no, I know what to do so that it aids your understanding. You don't just stay there like you are not there. It doesn't work like that. Have I made myself clear?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Yes, madam.
All right. Do you realize that when you watch a movie or you see a play, there are so many people who have opinions about the play or the movie? Oh, I mean, it can be a public event. People can say so many things about, oh, this thing, I didn't like it. Oh, that character, he was too known. Oh, this woman, she was too loud. Everybody has an opinion about a book, a song, a play, a movie, whatever it is. And for some reason, people call themselves critics. But we know that for you to truly be a critic, your opinions must be backed by clearly articulated principles or theories. So that when you say this character is this, you are actually backing it up with either a type that you have identified in, dramatic contexts, or you are relating that character to a certain type that is well known, and then give evidence as to why you are saying that the character is this way or that way. Because we all have opinions. But when you are learning to be an analyst, you need to be able to back what you are saying up with evidence. Okay. So there are various critical approaches. When you read a play and you are not doing formalist analysis, which is the kind of analysis that just focuses on the text alone and dissecting it to see how all the elements are related to each other and how they work together to communicate a meaning, then it means that you are doing one of these: a historical criticism, a biographical criticism, sociological criticism, psychological criticism, or feminist literary criticism. You can also have a Marxist criticism. There are so many theories you can use to explain what your play is all about, depending on what you want to say. Okay, and most of these you will be doing in dramatic theory and criticism. Okay, but what we are focusing on here is what we are focusing on here is mostly about the play text itself and what it means by looking at its various elements and how they all work together to communicate a meaning. Okay. And so, meaning, when we are talking about meaning, it means we are delving into the realm of interpretation. Yes, you have broken them down. You see how they are all working together. But as they are working together and they are making sense, it means that they are creating meaning in your mind. And so, what kind of interpretation that is? What kind of meaning are you assigning to the text based on your analysis and evidence? Interpretation is basically, what is your conclusion? What is the meaning that you have arrived at the end of your analysis? Does that make sense?
Yes, please.
Yes, madam.
Okay. And there are theories of interpretation to guide the way you interpret your texts. Depending on your belief in terms of the theories that are available, you can use a certain means towards arriving at your interpretation. These are just a few. So there is the intentionalist or authorial intent theory. You don't need to really worry about these, but I just want you to be aware of these theories that exist. So the author intent theory, this one, intentionalist, states that the meaning of the play is actually determined by the meaning that the author has put on it. And it is your job as the analyst to find out what the intention of the author was for writing that play and what he was trying to say so that it will guide your interpretation of the text. And then there is the reader response theory of interpretation, which says that meaning of a text is not fixed by the writer. It is determined by you, the reader. And so you construct the meaning as you are reading it based on your experiences, based on your level of understanding or exposure. You have a certain meaning of the play, and that should suffice. Okay. It shouldn't be determined or predetermined by the author. And that you, the reader, are responsible for coming up with what the text means. And then there is post-colonial theory. Now, all of these, are theories from cultural studies. But of course, play texts are cultural texts. Okay, so you can easily apply them and operate with them. Now, the post-colonial theory actually focuses on texts that reflect the experiences of people who have been formerly colonized, okay, and how they are going through the process of decolonization or how they are responding to that experience. And so in Ghana, for instance, we are a post-colonial state, okay, and so we are still living the effects of colonization when you look at our status within world economies and development and everything. We are a post-colonial state by virtue of the fact that we were colonized, and it has ramifications for us, and most of us still believe that we are still being colonized. And so sometimes you find that people write plays to reflect this kind of condition where maybe people have become too Eurocentric because of the kind of education they have received, and then the consequences of all of these things. If you read, I'm sure you have all read Kobnasichi's The Blinkards, right? Or have you
Yes,
heard of?
please.
Uh-huh. So it is an example of a post-colonial text. And interestingly, it was first published, it was first published in
Amen.
1913. In 1913, And that was way before we gained independence, right? And so you don't say that the post-colonial is actually determined by the period that began after colonization. No, started like way before we gained independence. And so post-colonial theory just reflects on the experiences of people who have been formerly colonized and how they are responding to that kind of experience and all that. But you don't have to worry about these things. I just brought these theories here for you to know that there are theories guiding our interpretation of texts. And depending on the kind of interpretation you are giving a text, if it's a feminist interpretation, you know that you need to go look for a feminist theory in order to guide your interpretation of the text. If you are looking at it as a post colonial text, you know that you need to look for a post colonial theory. You have to find a text that teaches you what post-colonial theory is all about so that you can apply it to your analysis and interpretation of a text. That is all I wanted to, expose you to. But this is, I mean, not exhaustive at all. I've just presented three theories here, but I just want you to be aware that whatever it is you do, if you are guided by theory, it helps you to make meaningful um, interpretation, an interpretation that people can relate to and scholars everywhere can actually take you seriously. That, oh, you are analyzing this play from this theoretical perspective and it makes sense, especially if you are analyzing as a critic and you are not analyzing it as somebody using it for a production. Okay, so these are useful when you are giving a critical interpretation of the play text. But when you are analyzing it for production, I mean, being able to break it down and identifying the relationship that exists amongst the elements and how they all come together to communicate what you have identified as the meaning of the play would suffice. Okay. All right. So, in this course, my main objective is to teach you how to analyze plays and assign a particular interpretation on the text using evidence from the text. And so, to build on what I have introduced you to today, next week we will look at Aristotle's Poetics, the six elements of drama. We'll look at given circumstances of a play and then look at the background story technique and then what a premise of a play is all about before we delve into the analysis of the one act plays. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
No, madam.
You don't have any questions
No,
at
please.
all. So does it mean that everything was clear?
Yes.
Okay. Please, I encourage you all to go to Sakai and, just familiarize yourselves with the interface, and because that's where everything will be. And I'll set up the assignments and also go and get your hands on the place and start reading, okay? So that you get a head start. Because when we get to the full length plays, it will begin to get really difficult. So please, just start early and give yourself enough, time so that you don't rush and do things to get stressed and burned out by the end of the semester. Okay?
Okay, madam.
All right. I'll see you next week, Lord willing. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you, madam.